Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Arion, The Light That Burns the Sky, out February 28th on Reigning Phoenix Music. This album has 11 tracks, 45 minutes in length, and this is the band's fourth full-length studio record. They are a Finnish symphonic power metal band. Now, this is one of those records that is not defined by its overall presence. It's an album that feels very linear at times, that there is an incredibly sense of balance throughout the tracks, and even a few songs that try to break that linearity, they always find themselves going back to that same formula. So these little jolts that the record have is not enough to change the perception of the album, to change how the album flows. And when you put it all together, the overall design doesn't have an impact on how you perceive the record. It has only an impact on how the record is presented. So it's more about how each and every single song will connect with the listener, and a lot less in terms of what they can do to improve the overall experience. As far as the sound of this record is concerned, it's definitely a symphonic power metal album, and it's one that has almost as much emphasis on the symphonic side as it does on the power metal side. What I mean by that is that it's not one of those symphonic power metal records that perhaps uses the symphonic orchestral elements to a certain extent that almost minimizes the impact of drums and guitars. When you're listening to this album, you're going to find that the guitars have its own space. They have their own room to breathe. And you're going to see a lot of that, for example, in the solos, but even in the melodies and some of the leads. And that there's definitely some heavier riffs on a few tracks on this album that give enough room for the guitars to expose themselves and showcase that more power side of the power metal sound that the band has. You could say the same about the drums, but the symphonic elements are so predominant, the orchestrational pieces are so predominant on this record that at times, while not necessarily overlapping those guitars and those drums, they definitely interlace with them and allow the listener to perhaps be taken back by them, seeing them more as one of the main driving forces of the overall soundscape, of the overall sound that this record has. And I think that's where the linearity exists. The album consistently has this big sound, an epic sound, a very melodic sound that is emphasized by those keyboard melodies, by those orchestrational pieces, by the symphonic elements all around. And that it's something that never really changes throughout the record. Every song always feels massive. Even tracks that try to change that dynamic and are able to do so in terms of how the verses are presented, you find that once it gets to the chorus, you start to see the song becoming a big, having this big impact, this big volume, both in a sonic perspective, but also even from the way the vocals are presented. I think this allows the record to keep that sense of linearity, but it also allows the record to at times feel quite redundant and even repetitive, because while the sounds might be different, while the textures of the songs might be different, the way the record presents itself, it always feels like it follows the exact same formula. And that to me takes away from, for example, the quality that the guitars have all around, that the drums have. The drum sound on this album is tremendous. It's quite heavy, actually, more so than what I was expecting coming in. But even the guitar sound, the room that the guitars have, the guitar solos on this record are really well done, are really cool, in the right spot, in the right place. This album has a lot of cool elements. But that idea that you always have to go back to that same formula, you always have to create these larger-than-life songs, you always have to emphasize the symphonic aspects, the orchestrational aspects of the record, doesn't really allow the album to give the listener different perspectives. And I think that's where this album falls short. Now, once you move into the vocals, I thought the vocals all around very fluid, very impactful. A few changes here and there. A song like Wildfire is really unique from a vocal standpoint. But I also enjoyed some of the layers, some of the textures, the backing vocals. This album vocally matches the essence that it has musically, because it's an album that musically feels larger than life. Vocally, you try to find a way of doing the exact same thing. And on this record, instead of perhaps being a little bit more dynamic, what they did was they used really well the layering in the vocals, the backing vocals, in order to give them some size, some emphasis, some volume as well, and that helped match the overall volume that sound-wise was already there. But even that becomes also very predictable because it's an element that sees itself being repetitive and being repeated throughout the entire record. While the album overall, from a production standpoint, is way above Vultures Die Alone, but even from a musical standpoint, I think this is a much better record than Vultures Die Alone for sure. I think it falls a little bit short of what we saw from this band in their first two records. This album lacks those bombastic tracks that have a sense of uniqueness. The album has bombastic songs, but it doesn't have songs that when you're listening to them, you immediately focus on these tracks because they stand out. This album lacks that. The balance that it offers, the sense of continuation that it has, it really minimizes the opportunity for the album to have those jolts built into it. And I think that takes a little bit away from what this album overall could have been. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with The Light That Burns the Sky. This is definitely one of my favorite tracks. It has a great riff. The guitars have some grit in them, allowing the verses to feel a little bit more heavy in terms of what the guitars are bringing to the table, but also the way the drums sound. And then you move into this more symphonic power metal sound in the chorus, allowing the chorus to be bigger, brighter, more layered, more melodic, both on the musical side but also on the vocal side. And that then takes that on into the next verse. And this is the part about the song that I really like, because they try to kill some of that linearity that you're going to find throughout the record. This song shows you that you could have a sense of growth. The way the first verse hits is a lot more stripped down than with the way the second verse hits. The chorus really works almost as that first chorus works as a bridge in order to give a sense of evolution and give a sense of growth to the way the sound, to the way the song comes across. It has a great solo section that really emphasizes the space for the guitars to breathe, and overall is a track that has great guitar sound. Then you have Burning in the Skies, a more symphonic, a more modern, I would say, power metal melodic song. It still has an impact coming out of the drums and guitars to lay the more metal sound groundwork into the track, and then you have the synths that really drive over it. Now, the vocal layers on this track are super catchy, and I thought that that was something that helped emphasize a uniqueness within the song, and you're going to find it predominantly in the chorus. It has a great chorus from that standpoint, but overall is a track, because of the way it moves, the way it sounds, the way that it has that more modern touch, is a fun, melodic driven song with a very contagious synth melody. The melody of the synths in this song becomes the spinal cord of the track, and it's very memorable, and that's a unique element that this song offers. Last but not least, Wildfire. I think this is the most unique song on the entire record, because this song, if you break it down and you divide the verses in the chorus is your prototypical power metal, symphonic power metal song, something that you're going to hear throughout the entire album. This chorus really feels like it slingshots itself to where this record constantly is. But the verses sound like a metalcore song, not just from a soundscape point of view, but also the way the vocals are being delivered is the most unique song sound-wise, is the most unique song vocally. I just wished they kept that uniqueness that you see in the verses moving into the chorus, versus falling prey to going back to, let's make it a big chorus, let's make it a bombastic chorus, let's make it a melodic chorus, and then you just bring in the elements that we've seen on almost every single chorus up until this point. Having said that, it still feels very unique, because that more metalcore sound in the verses allows this track to stand out, and definitely the unique approach vocally also allows this track to stand out. This is it, Arion with The Light That Burns the Sky. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.